Did you know there's a lighthouse where 3 keepers vanished, mid-meal leaving everything behind except themselves? This isn't a sailor's tale. This is a real event. Perhaps the most haunting disappearance in maritime history, the Flannan Isles mystery. 20 miles off the coast of Scotland sits a lonely island cluster, the Flannan Isles. No trees, no harbour, no permanent residence. Only wind, rock, and a roaring, endless sea. In 1899, a lighthouse was built on Eilean Muir, a towering cliff surrounded by brutal waves. It needed 3 keepers, working in rotations, to keep its light alive. The isolation was so intense that some sailors refused to even look toward the island. They called it the edge of the world. On December 15, 1900, everything seemed normal. The lighthouse flame burned bright through the night. The keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Duquette, and Donald MacArthur, performed their routine checks. A logbook entry described the storms as the worst they had ever seen. Winds so strong they sounded like screaming voices. But after that night, something changed. The lighthouse light went dark. Ships passing by reported a black, silent tower instead of the usual beam cutting through the mist. Still, no distress signal had been sent. No telegram, no warning, just darkness. On December 26th, 11 days later, a relief ship finally arrived. As they approached the island, the captain grew uneasy. The lighthouse remained completely dead. When the rescue team climbed the stone stairs leading to the lighthouse door, they noticed something strange. The entrance was locked from the inside. Once they forced it open, the interior looked frozen in time. A coat hanging on a hook, a half-eaten meal sitting on the table, a knocked-over chair as if someone stood up too quickly. A clock stopped mid-tick as if time itself had paused, but the rooms were silent, empty, absent of all human life. The keepers were gone. The logbook entries from the final days were unsettling. One entry described a storm so terrifying that Duke, the oldest keeper, was reportedly very quiet. Another said MacArthur, a tough, experienced man, was crying, yet weather reports for that day showed no storms anywhere near the island. How had they written about a storm no one else saw? Even more disturbing, the final entry simply read, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all," but the seas had been calm all week. Something was wrong. Investigators examined the island's western cliffs and found iron railings twisted like pieces of wire. A supply crate 100 feet above sea level had been destroyed. Massive rocks weighing tons had been ripped from the ground. It looked like a violent storm had hit, but only in one isolated area. The official theory: 2 keepers went outside to secure equipment during a rogue wave. A massive surge swept them away. The 3rd keeper rushed out to help and met the same fate, but this explanation didn't fit. Why were 2 sets of outdoor gear missing, but the 3rd set left untouched? Why was the door locked from the inside? And more eerie, why was the crane used for hoisting equipment ripped from its platform, as if by something not human? Witnesses later reported seeing strange lights in the sky above the Flannan Isles that same week. Fishermen swore they heard singing coming from the island even though the lighthouse was empty. Locals started whispering about an ancient legend that the Flannan Isles were once home to spirits who punished those who disturbed their land. Others claimed the men may have experienced something psychological, isolation, fear, cabin fever, something that pushed them beyond reason. But the most chilling detail: there were no bodies, not even a piece of clothing washed ashore, just disappearance. 3 full-grown men gone without a trace. Even the ocean returns what it takes. But this time, it returned nothing. Weeks later, the lighthouse resumed operation. New keepers were sent to replace the vanished ones. On their first night, one of the new keepers wrote in his log, "I feel watched. The tower is never truly quiet." To this day, tourists and workers swear they hear footsteps in the lighthouse, or see shadows where no one should be standing. The dining table remains a part of the island's legend, the unfinished meal forever symbolizing 3 lives interrupted. Some mysteries fade with time, but the Flannan Isles, they hold tight to their secrets. 3 men walked into a storm no one else saw. 3 men vanished into a silence no one can explain, and a lighthouse built to guide sailors home stands as the last witness to a story with no ending. So the next time you see a beacon flickering across the sea, remember the keepers who vanished from their posts, leaving only their footsteps, their fears, and a meal that was never finished. Some lights guide you, some lights warn you, and some remind you that even in the modern world, the ocean still keeps its ghosts.